Hi everybody, I'm Addie.
And I'm Regan.
And this is Just Weird Crap. Oh my gosh, you guys. We have literally started this episode like 4 times, I feel like. And for some reason, it's me or Regan, both of us, are not hitting the record button. And I don't know what's wrong with us.
We just talked to ourselves for like 30 seconds.
And I'm so glad I noticed right now. What if we got like to the end of the story and like we hadn't...
I would probably be crying a little bit on the inside at least.
I honestly would be. I really would be. Oh my gosh.
So
just tell me everything you just told me again.
Alrighty. This episode was really interesting to do the research for because out of all of the stories and fables and crazy accounts that we've covered over a few episodes that we've done, I think this one actually has one of the better explanations, like a decent explanation for what happened.
I'm still mad about the sky meat. I can't figure it out. You're not gonna leave me like that again, are you?
Hopefully not.
Okay.
Hopefully none of our listeners feel that way
That
either.
one still keeps me up at night. What was the sky meat?
Alright, so we're gonna put on our time travel hats for this one.
Oh my gosh, I forgot mine.
Yeah, okay. Well, I brought us there.
Okay, good.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Put your little time travel caps on. Because we're going back to the 12th century.
Which is gosh.
Very far back in history.
That's like you need a couple times. I need my time travel hat, my time travel socks, my time travel...
Get all of your
jammies.
Get your time travel unitard on.
Yeah, unitard. No, I don't want to go back that bad. Okay, anyway, sorry. 12th century.
12th century England, Suffolk, England, in a village called Woolpit. It's summertime, late summer.
Okay.
And they're reapers harvesting grain in the fields when they made a strange discovery of 2 children at the edge of a field. The children were chattering in an unknown language, and their clothing was just weird and unlike anything any of the villagers were familiar with. But the most startling aspect of their appearance was that their skin was green.
We've all had a bad makeup shade match, you know? We've all been there.
So, green skin.
That's weird. A little weird.
Yes, it's might be a little bit disconcerting. So these 2 children were brought back to the village, and they were taken into the home of a local man, Sir Richard Decane. I apologize if I'm butchering any of the pronunciations of any of the names that I'm going to start. I mean, they are English, and sometimes things are a little bit different in
I think
Britain,
all these people are probably dead, so they're not going to be able to come at you.
I mean, there's towns and stuff, too, that still exist.
Did you not look up the pronunciation?
I looked at pronunciation for everything else, but there is no pronunciation for Decane.
Decane. Oh.
I mean, it's spelled, okay.
I think that's it. I feel like I've heard that before.
Yeah, I listened to another podcast on this subject, and it was pronounced differently, but it looks like...
Was it Ashley Flowers? She knows everything.
But I looked up a pronunciation, and I couldn't find anything, so I don't know.
Ashley knows all.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I won't tell her.
Caine.
Yeah.
The children appeared to be starving.
Oh no.
But they refused all of the food offered by the villagers for days. They refused to eat anything until they happened to find some fava beans, which, when they found them, they just tore into them and ate them raw.
Oh,
so
gross.
yeah, fava beans are already an acquired taste. Yeah. But they just wolfed him down.
Gotta get those fava beans, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a staple food.
Yeah.
Okay, so the thing with this story that I will say is that there are 2 different accounts
Oh.
And they do differ slightly, or at least there's details in some that aren't in the other one. Like, so I'm gonna have to go back and forth a little bit. I might be like, okay, in this story this happens, in this story this happens. So I'm just gonna put that out there.
Okay.
The first difference in the accounts is that the timeline seems to be slightly different because the children eventually started to eat other foods besides fog beans.
Okay.
And when they did so, when they kind of broadened their diet a little bit, their green skin started to fade. According to one story, that's what happened. But according to another, only the girl, there were a boy and a girl that appeared to be brother and sister. And the girl appeared to be a little older. And by one account, she started eating, more normal food, and she did lose her green complexion. Mm-hmm. But the boy became sickly, and unfortunately, he died.
I think that's the story I've heard.
Yeah, that's the story I heard, but then I think he dies in all of the accounts, sadly, but he lasts longer than others, and he does start to eat normal food.
Well, to be fair, it was the 12th century, so the fact that there's two stories of this that are remotely similar is impressive to me.
It is impressive. So, either way, at some point, within about a year of them arriving at the village, the little boy passed away. But what is assumed to be his sister, eventually learned English fluently. She, like I said, she started to eat, regular food. Mm-hmm. And, of course, they're all dying to know where these kids came from. And so when she does learn English, the tale that she tells is just extraordinary. The accounts differ is coming up. But in both versions of her tale, she said that her and her brother lived in a land that was perpetually, dusky. There was no sunlight. It was just, constant twilight. Just all the time. And that everybody that she lived among also had green skin. Like her and her brother.
Oh my gosh.
According to one account, she and her brother had been tending their father's flocks. So wherever this world is, they do have sheep.
Yeah.
And they heard a sound like bells. They heard chiming, distant chiming. And when they heard this, they suddenly found themselves in the fields where they were discovered. In the other version of this story, she and her brother were tending the flocks, and they came upon a cave, which they entered, and they were wandering around in darkness until they heard bells, and following the sound of bells, they came out of the other side of the cave into the bright country of,
that's so
England
weird.
in the daytime. And then they were found, not long after coming out of the cave. So, the girl called the country that they came from St. Martin's Land. And she said that visible from her homeland across a huge river, she could see, and this is a quote directly from the accounts, she said a certain luminous country was visible across this river, but the way it sounds like it was not something they actually ever went to. It's just visible. So that's her story, and for a lot of reasons it's pretty fantastic. Because there's so many similarities to our world, but it's okay, they've got sheep and caves and bells and saints, but everyone's green and there's no sunlight.
Yeah, that's so bizarre.
It's a bizarre tale that she tells.
Huh.
So that was her story, and she grew up and lived as a servant with Sir Richard Duquesne for a few years, and probably, not everything is really known about the rest of her life because it wasn't well documented, but folklore tells that she eventually married a man from a nearby town, and some research conducted by Scottish astronomer and author Duncan Lunan indicates that she may have taken the name Agnes Barr, and that she married a royal official by the name of Richard Barr. So that is her story.
Wow.
And I guess I'll get to some explanations now, but
Yeah, I need more information.
yeah, we need some more information.
It's so hard because it was so long ago. Like, you're not working with that much information, unfortunately.
Yeah, probably this happened sometime in the late 1100s during the reign of King Stephen.
That's so wild. Oh my gosh.
Is it not? It's so crazy. So, worth noting, for one thing, is that both accounts I studied, one was by Ralph of Coggeshall and William of Newburgh. They give a pretty specific estimate of when the events they describe took place. And this is an important point because a lot of people just say that this entire story was completely made up. It was just, a folk tale that was like fairies, and just a nice little fairy story. But it's unusual for legends of that kind to give dates, or at least a rough estimate of when, something occurred. And this was during the reign of one of two kings, which, that's like a fairy tale. It's like, all right, during the reign of so-and-so, this fairy tale occurred.
Yeah, like you never hear a fairy tale like, during the reign of George W. Bush. This person is like that.
It kind of takes away from the...
Yeah, you're like, that's not... What?
Yeah. And it's probably... These were recorded... The story was probably recorded within a lifetime of when that actually happened, if this did indeed happen. Yeah. Because one of the people that chronicled this happening, this event, said that his source was Richard Duquesne. So I'm like, okay, that's a pretty good source. I mean, there's no way to prove that, but it was obviously not long after this actually happened because, he was still alive.
It seems like it checks out. It's not...
Yeah. It's not
so
totally fantastical.
Yeah.
I mean, except for the green skin, which I will
yeah,
elaborate
get to that. Keep going.
So there is the usual explanation that they were aliens, extraterrestrials, fairies, you know.
I mean, you gotta go through those options.
Yes. And there is a theory that has been proposed that the children existed in a planet that was in a synchronous orbit with the sun, which basically means that like something is orbiting the same speed as the orbit as the object that it is revolving around. Yeah. Therefore, like one side would always be facing.
So they wouldn't have like a sunrise and a sunset like we would.
No. And life would only be possible in a narrow strip because one side would be burning hot and the other side would be icy and dark.
Oh, that's true.
So people would have to exist, or extraterrestrials would have to exist in a narrow band, which would be twilight. Yeah. Like all the time.
Huh, okay, that's interesting.
How they got to Earth is a mystery. Also, like I said, they have caves.
They heard bells, Regan.
They had bells and caves and saints, and but they lived on another planet, which kind of puts a hole in that theory to me. So a more believable explanation has been proposed, and this states that the children were the children of Flemish immigrants. Flemish from Flanders, Belgium, which many of these people came to England during the 12th century. And unfortunately, they endured a lot of persecution under King Henry II, who became king in 1154. So, not about the time when this story was recorded. This would explain the children's unfamiliar language and clothing.
Yeah.
And a convincing point for this theory is that very near the village of Woolpit, there is an abbey, Bury St. Edmunds, and it has bells. And also there is a village called Fornham St. Martin.
Oh, okay.
So we have that St. Martin's land, like, maybe this was...
So this isn't actually sounding all that fantastical.
This isn't sounding that crazy anymore.
Yeah.
So it's possible that these children maybe got lost and they heard the bells of Bury St. Edmunds.
So basically these poor kids just got lost and then were kidnapped and like they never got to go back home.
I mean,
if this is true.
It's possible. But by all accounts, Agnes probably could have gone back home if she wanted to, and she never appeared to.
True.
So, yeah, there is that.
Okay. Well, okay.
So,
Get more into that, because there's so much more to unpack here.
there is. Okay, so yeah, there's a little bit north of Woolpit is the Abbey, Bury St. Edmunds, and it's separated. This abbey is near the village of Fornham St. Martin, and separating them is a river.
Oh.
So, yeah, the River
Okay.
Lark.
Yeah.
So that explains everything, basically, but a few points, like the green skin, which I will elaborate on.
Okay, thank you. I'm dying.
In a minute.
Yeah.
You would think, though, living in such close proximity, like, people wouldn't have been unfamiliar with the language that the children was speaking. If they probably would have heard Flemish.
Maybe.
And
but...
the man who took these kids in was a knight, which, I mean, I think to be a knight, from what I know about knights, you were, like, well-educated.
I mean...
So it seems kind of odd that he wouldn't have at least recognized, like, their clothing or something.
I guess. Maybe he just didn't get out a lot.
I don't know. So, this brings me to the green skin.
Yes. What we're really here for.
So, it is possible that the children's odd coloration was caused by a condition called hypochromic anemia, which is actually known as green sickness.
Ooh.
Because it can cause a jaundice-like greenish-yellow pallor, and it can be caused by a certain nutrient deficiency, infection, even copper or lead poisoning, none of which were uncommon at this time in history.
True. Very true.
The thing is, I mean, I tried to look up a few pictures of, like, the color this can cause, but I think it's honestly pretty treatable today, so it's not all over the internet, green people.
And if you get that green, you probably don't get to that point anymore, because...
I think so, yeah. And, I mean, the thing is, it's like, it's usually the symptoms are more of a yellowish pallor, not being green.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, when you're jaundiced, you look...
And, I mean, it's not jaundice, but it does cause, like, a similar pallor.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, like, when you describe someone as being jaundiced, you say, like, oh, their skin is yellow, but it's not, like, Big Bird yellow. And so I feel like the same way with green, it's like, yeah, you look... Like, oh man, you're seasick, you look green. It's not, you're not actually green like a leaf or something. It's more like...
Exactly.
Yeah. But if all these people said these kids look green, like, well, maybe they were real bad. I don't know. Like,
I mean, it's not treatable, back then. And like I said, the Flemish were enduring a lot they were of persecution, and there was even a battle fought not far away in which a lot of Flemish fought, and afterward it's possible that some of families were broken apart or children were orphaned or something.
True.
So it's possible that these kids had just kind of were like refugees.
Yeah.
In a way. So yeah, there's that. That could explain the green skin and the unknown language and everything. So while researching this, I was left wondering about the fava beans thing, because that is basically the weirdest part of the story, because everything else can kind of be explained away. And I was just going, okay, well, this makes sense except for that.
That is really weird. Like, why are they so obsessed with fava beans?
Yeah, why would they not eat anything, And I thought that was so weird. And then I looked up the symptoms of hypochromic anemia.
Oh.
And among these is actually unpredictable or lacking appetite.
Huh. Okay.
So...
I think we've solved
I think we've solved it. I mean, fava beans are a weird thing to crave, but I guess if you're really sick, maybe they were...
Do fava beans have, like, a specific nutrient that is in...
No.
That you need...
They're very nutrient dense, but from what I read, they're not, like, super high in iron or the specific B vitamin that can cause...
Well, maybe, like, all the other food they were being offered was, like, bread and, like...
Maybe they just really wanted a vegetable.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't know if we do know, like, what year or what time of year this was, but, like...
Late summer, harvest time.
Oh, right, you said that. Oh, well, then I would assume there was a decent amount of food available.
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, maybe fava beans were like the most nutrient dense thing, and they saw
Yeah.
that and they were like, "Yep, that's what I want." Versus
I
like,
mean, at some point your body kind of like knows what it needs, almost like it. You know,
like I need a Taco Bell Mexican pizza.
I needed a milkshake earlier, and I polished that off.
You did. You went through that. We went through our ice cream.
We had a little treat.
We did. Yeah. You gotta treat yourself. You know.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the actual reason we're here.
What was very odd to me is that actually none of the explanations and the things I researched about all the theories that, you know, this is what was causing the green skin and all that, nobody mentioned that that's a symptom of a condition that can turn your skin greenish. That
really? That
so I'm like, that was not, all I did was, you know, click on another Wikipedia page. Like, I didn't do that much work to find this out. I was just like, okay, maybe I want to look up, you know, if this is an explanation, I want to learn a little bit.
Well, no, that really does make
condition.
Sense. That makes a lot of sense, because I was kind of thinking, like, I mean, if these kids really are, like, starving or hungry or whatever, like, you think that they would accept some type of food.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing they offered them was, like, bread. I mean, who doesn't like bread?
I freaking love bread.
Bread is so good.
I like it more than fava beans, let me tell you.
But like I said, a finicky, unpredictable appetite. Not just a lack of appetite, but a weird appetite.
Like fava beans.
Like a weird craving for fava beans.
Okay, that really does explain a lot.
So yeah, like I said, this actually has a pretty good explanation.
I wonder if, like, other people doing this podcast, like this story and everything, sometimes it's like you don't want to know the explanation. You just want to believe that there were these weird green kids running around.
Yeah. So basically, they could have been Flemish orphans or refugees, and you know, that are of some sort that had gotten lost. And one more thing that is interesting is there were actually some really, really old mine, like, tunnels in this area, so that it's possible that the children got lost in one of these, and this is the cave.
Okay, honestly, this one, it seems
it's not unexplainable.
It seems pretty. The only weird thing about it is the fact that she was like, oh, it's always twilight where we are, but
the weirdest thing about it is her story.
But maybe they hadn't been there that long, and maybe it was just, like, kind of dusky or something. I mean, there are some days where it's like the cloud cover, like, doesn't really...
it is Great Britain, which isn't very cloudy a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not... I mean, there's been days where it's been, like, stormy for several days in a row, and I feel like it doesn't ever get, like, truly sunny out because of the clouds or whatever. So, I mean, she was a young kid, too. By the time she could actually speak English fluently, maybe she wasn't able to, like, fully remember or fully get her point across or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I'm not...
Everything else about her...
But I feel like a child could make up a story like this if they'd been through some sort of trauma, too.
True.
So it might have been a coping mechanism, maybe, for her.
But even aside from that, like, her story doesn't seem that bizarre to me.
Yeah,
it seems
there
like
are
maybe
some points that can be explained.
She was kind of a confused kid, which aren't we all?
Maybe they'd been living in, like, a forest or something, and it was just dark. I mean,
this story actually makes so much sense that,
I'm a little
disappointed,
really
but it's not a mysterious...
Sorry, it's not quite as freaky as some of the other things we've covered.
No, that's good, though, because I think that sometimes it's good to get one that you can actually explain and actually, like, be like, okay, that does make sense. Some things you need an answer to, so...
I need answers.
That's really interesting, though. I've never heard anyone actually say any of those things before.
Not to, like, you know, put down any other podcasts or websites or articles that I read about this and listened to, but like I said, it's odd to me that no one ever made the connection to the weird appetite, because that was one of the most confusing points to me, because it's like, yeah, her story's weird, but she was young. I mean... Yeah,
not wanting to eat anything, but then eating fava beans. Like,
that's weird.
That is really odd to me, so... Yeah, but that makes so much sense. Like, and like you said, it wasn't just a lack of appetite, but it's a weird appetite. Like, for weird stuff. I
mean, I know certain, like, nutrient deficiencies cause you to, like, eat dirt and stuff, so...
Yeah, and fava beans are better than
happens.
Dirt.
Yeah, fava beans, not so weird compared to that.
That honestly makes so much sense, though.
Yeah. So, her story is intriguing, but I guess that's something we'll never
immigrants, children, lost, in a cave,
Or a mine tunnel.
Heard
the bells of the Abbey.
Because that was consistent in both of the stories.
Yes, they heard bells every time.
Bells. They had a form of anemia. They had a weird appetite. They ate fava beans. They got better.
Yeah.
Honestly, does not sound super far-fetched.
And what's actually interesting, too, is in the girl's testimony, she said, like, we heard bells such as we are accustomed to hearing from the Abbey. So she made a connection in her story. She's like, the bells were similar to what we hear from the Abbey of Bury St. Edmunds. Yeah. So it was kind of interesting because she didn't actually say, and you can look this up too, there is like direct quotations from one of the accounts or both somewhere, what she said. Her story was, and it is interesting. Because, she says, like, we heard bells like we are used to hearing now. So it's like, it might have been the same bells.
It probably were the same bells.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I wonder why their clothes were so weird. But maybe
the Flemish were known for, like, brightly colored kind of clothing.
Oh, really?
So, I mean, okay. So many different countries just have different clothing customs from...
True.
I mean, to me, it's like... And if they just started arriving in England, I believe, in the 12th century, so they may not have been...
So they were new.
They hadn't been there for hundreds of years and completely assimilated, or at least people were, used to seeing this culture.
That does make sense.
So it's possible that this happened very soon after Flemish immigrants started arriving, and people just didn't know the language, didn't know the clothing.
Huh.
So yeah, very interesting
mystery solved. To me, that settles it.
Yes.
Like, that doesn't even seem like that much of a mystery, truly.
It honestly, it seems it's kind of a weird thing, but it doesn't really warrant a lot of the theories out there about, like, they're fairies, they're extraterrestrials, and, like, there is actually a decent explanation for this.
What's with these green kids? They must be aliens.
Yeah.
Well...
I mean, this has inspired, like, plays and books and stuff about that, and I'm like, it's... Okay, calm down, everybody.
They just needed some fava beans.
Sometimes I guess it's more fun to just take something and run with it.
It's true. And also, this one being so long ago, like, there's so many centuries of...
So many, yeah.
Of time to kind of take this and just turn it into a sensational story, but...
I mean, it's been passed down in, like, folklore.
Yeah.
And when that happens, sometimes things get added, things get taken away, and just the whole thing seems less real. Like, you're less likely to want to think of a real explanation for Snow White. Like, after hearing it so many times. So, yeah, there is that. Hope y'all enjoyed this little trip into medieval times.
I did. I wish we could do more old stories, like stories that long ago, but it's so hard because they're so long, so long ago.
I mean, so it's kind of interesting to me because I'm kind of a history geek, but I'm more of like a 1700s on history geek. I didn't love studying the medieval times and the Renaissance and all that. I was like...
It was kind of depressing, honestly.
Well, the Renaissance was interesting, but, I mean, I this actually kind of ignited a desire to learn maybe a little bit more about this time in history, so... Yeah. Well, that's what research can do.
Yeah, I might be coming at you with some more medieval mysteries. Actually, there's probably a lot that we could delve into in that genre.
Honestly, nothing was very explainable back then. It was like,
It was a lot of weird crap.
There was a lot of weird crap.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at justweirdcrap or send us an email at justweirdcrap@gmail.com.
Be sure to follow us and give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
We greatly appreciate our sponsors. To support this podcast for as little as 99 cents a month, follow the link in the episode description.
Be sure to share this podcast with your friends and family. We will see you all next week.
Bye!